Okay, it's 7 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. First item of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Selectman Nordell, would you like to lead us? Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this point in time, I would ask for a motion to go into recess.
I'll move that we go into recess.
I'll
Second.
Wow. So. Second by Selectman Baker, all in favor of recess, please say aye.
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 At this time, I'd like to convene the joint public hearing between the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education on the first selectman and superintendent's budget recommendations for FY 23-24. Madam Chairman. How are you?
How are you?
Good.
I'd like to convene the Board of Education on the public hearing this evening for that motion.
Call to order.
Sorry. Okay, call to order.
All right, anybody who wants copies of the budget submissions, Dr. Kutrins and mine are here. Oh, mine. All right, there we go. We'll go to that table. What have we done? Well, mine I know. Careful with that. Can you? You're out of range, Charlie.
I think, do you want me to take
Yeah. You want me?
Sure.
It's okay, you want to get to them back.
What do you need? What if someone can push that forward?
It's fine. All right, so I am going to present my recommendations to the Board of Selectmen for the initial FY 23-24 budget pertaining mostly to the downside operating expenditures. First, I gotta get to the right screen here. Okay, does that work? It does. I want to start with a little bit of a refresher on composition of the community. This is data that should be familiar to you all. It's the same slide that was used last year. The information is updated once a year and has not yet been updated by the source. But it still serves as a snapshot for what our community looks like. We have an under 5 population of about 680 people, a school age population of about 1,360 people, adults who are working age adults, about 7,400 people, and senior citizens, we have just shy of 2,000. This is called a mountain chart, and this mountain chart shows over time where total budget dollars have gone. The shaded area shows where budget dollars would go in the next fiscal year as presented by Dr. Tudrin and me. This data shows growth in our grant list over time. Since we all took office, the grant list has grown by nearly $80 million, an 8% increase in taxable property. Taxable property is real property, personal property, and motor vehicles. Those are apples comparisons because they're all based off of the 2017 property revaluation. As our tax base grows, as you all know, that's less of a burden that's placed on individual existing taxpayers. So we continue to trend. For the next fiscal year's proposals, the distribution of appropriated funds is estimated to be 60% for the Board of Education and 40% for the town government. This is historically consistent with the distribution of local government money in East Windsor and remains consistent in the proposals in front of you tonight. In the current year, the average homeowner pays $5,144 in property taxes on their home. Under Congress proposal in money, that would increase to $5,268, an increase of $124 per year or $10 a month. 120. Keep in mind that is 121. That is a starting point for the process. This still goes through the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance. This slide shows the distribution of funds by percentage of where we are recommending funds be appropriated. Patrick and I were talking earlier about how I have my love affair going with pie charts, and you're going to see a bunch of those. This slide shows the proposed difference in spending by cost center, total amount spent by cost center in the budget proposal tonight in comparison with the current fiscal year. This chart shows the actual funding distribution and cost centers just on the town side government. You can see, you know, when you factor in the Board of Ed in comparison to just the town side, it really doesn't do its justice to point out where our spending areas are. As you can see, most of the spend is trending about consistent where it is in the current fiscal year, with the notable exception being benefits. This chart, once it populates, shows the breakdown for the average taxpayer in East Windsor. This is done by cost center, so you can see where the new tax dollars requested by the superintendent and me would be going. The average taxpayer would pay $2 less for general government, $12 less for public safety, $3 less for public works, $2 less for community services, the same amount for culture and leisure as last year, $4 less for debt service, the same for capital costs, $18 more for employee benefits, and $11 more for contingent costs. And the remainder would go towards the Board of Education. Now I'm going to look at where the dollars on the town side of the budget are going. As you can see, the distribution of funds between cost center is pretty static from this year to next, with only a couple of notable exceptions. The only changes are very slight redistributions up in benefits and contingency and down in debt service and public safety. All of those shifts are moving only 1 percentage point from where they are now. Amy and I also took the time this year to ask department heads about their revenue lines. This isn't something that's typically done at the first selecting level or even at the Board of Selectmen level, but it is made up of 2 parts, both expenditures and revenues. So we thought we wanted to include revenue recommendations as well. After meeting with department heads, we came to some changes that should be made in our revenue assumptions. We should be increasing our motor vehicle supplemental by $25,000 to a total of $350,000. Building department fees by $50,000 for a total of $300,000. And our interest assumption to a total of $100,000. Each of these increases is supported by historical trends. We can also decrease our aircraft fees revenue line by $500 for a total of $3,800. And lastly, the town has historically used an undesignated fund balance to offset property taxes to a degree. This lessens the tax burden that residents and businesses are asked to support. And it's also the only way that we can directly return monies from the undesignated fund balance to the taxpayers. Because of the overall health of the fund balance and like the pressures that we all know households in our community are facing, from electric costs to inflationary pressures, heating costs, grocery costs, and you can go on and on. And in light of all the economic development that will bolster tax revenues next year and in future years, I'm recommending that the town use $1.2 million from the fund balance this year, up from $750,000. Again, this is the only way of returning a budget surplus to the taxpayers. So last year, the board recognized the salary compression that was happening with current part-time employees. They were being paid $18 an hour, and as minimum wage continues to creep up, there was a significant compression issue. So we all agreed to increase that to $20 per hour over 2 years. This budget includes the second and final component of that. During the previous administration, Melissa Maltesi was named Director of Recreation and Community Services, which placed her as the Director of Social Services, Senior Services, and Parks and Recreation. What this budget does is it combines those 3 departments into one departmental budget, which will give her additional flexibility to manage those. Lastly, my budget eliminates 2 part-time positions and increases a 3rd one to full-time. I'm recommending eliminating 2 currently vacant part-time administrative positions, 1 in planning and zoning and 1 in senior services, and upgrading the senior center nutritionist to a full-time position. This can all be done for a total dollar increase of just $3,000. So assuming no additional changes in the expenditure request from me or Dr. Tiedemann, and again, we're at the very beginning of this process, so that's not set in stone, but making that assumption. And assuming that the revenue recommendations I'm putting forward are included, the mill rate would go up by 0.34 mils to 34.72, which is the same mill rate as our first year in office. For the town government, the request is for an additional $635,115. Breaking that down further, $270,000 of that is tied to increased benefit costs. $98,000 of that request is tied to non-negotiated wages. We currently have 3 contracts that are in some stage of negotiation but remain unsettled. So that those contracts that are out of date are what's driving the non-negotiated number up. And one other note on benefits, we're at the high end of the 27th payroll in this budget cycle. And so while that pushes things upward a bit now, and what we're about to be doing in FY24, it also leads to some significant relief on the horizon in FY25. That number will come down by a fair amount. So it's a short-term pressure for some long-term relief. And that is my presentation. Dr. Chu. So I'm just sharing on this.
I'm trying to remember where I put my car keys.
Yeah.
Good evening. As the first selectman indicated, I do have a copy of the presentation along with the budget booklet, which I will refer to up front. What I can share as far as this budget, certainly this is not a dollar-to-dollar breakdown, but really an overview of the costs and based on the priorities with the superintendent's proposed budget. So with that and with the priorities, it really is driven by the board's strategic plan, which was just implemented last November. So we're really in our second full year of our strategic plan. Certainly those highlight the goal areas and the link below. I'm sure at people's leisure, if they want to see the entire plan can be found there. But certainly when considering the priorities and the budget is driven by that strategic plan. Which is also closely linked with our portrait of the graduate. Just a little background on our portrait of the graduate. It was developed in collaboration with various community, school, and family stakeholders. I can tell you it highlights our vision of the K-12 experience here in East Windsor and the quality of student that's produced from that experience. That's perfect. Oh, perfect. So just to kind of like jump right into it. If you refer to the budget booklet, this is page 6, and just to even speak to the budget booklet a little bit more. Within the budget booklet, you will find a description of each budget department, the sampling of the good work that's taking place within the district, our goals, and explanation of the cost factors. The cost outline in each department, I will highlight this local dollars only. So I'll give some examples that provide further clarity with that. So it doesn't include the funds that we bring in through grants and other revenue sources. Again, referring to the budget booklet, we do give a complete listing of our grants starting on page 43 as far as how those grants support our needs and where the amount of funding and how it supports us throughout the school year. One thing that I'd just like to bring emphasis with these numbers. So you have the percent increase and decrease. Again, that's the local dollar increase and decrease. And just to further kind of like highlight how revenues can affect those numbers. I'll use one of the larger revenue sources. So we have students who attend our schools through the Hartford Choice Program. Through some of those students, they have special needs. And because of those special needs, we essentially receive revenue for the costs associated with that. So it's not something that's funded locally, it's a revenue source that's generated, and it equals about 700,000. So if you look at the special ed department, the cost to run that department would be approximately 700,000 on top of that. I can tell you one change in this budget proposal from previous budget proposals is in past years, we used that tuition revenue source to offset our medical insurance. And just complete honesty, it really doesn't make sense. It's a special ed revenue, so therefore it really should offset our special ed costs. So we moved that revenue source there. Thus, our medical insurance will look higher if you compared it to past budget presentations, but it's more reflective of the department and our operations there. But if it was just to take that 700,000, had that been offset to medical insurance in past years, the true increase to special education is 15% from previous years, and I can speak more to that though later. My pie charts are not as fancy as the first one. No embarrassing that we'll get there. But here you have a pie chart of the breakdown of the departments. Again, within our departments, I mean, we're a people-driven industry, so within each department is staffing and salaries. The pie chart, nor the departments really highlight the percent of salaries, but salaries make up 67% of our overall budget. Just to put that in perspective. And just to give again more clarity to the budget booklet, if you turn to like page 12 of the budget booklet, you'll see somewhere about the middle where it'll say East Windsor Middle School tutors. They'll indicate there's 3 of them there, and the cost assigned on that page will say $0. We do have 3 tutors. They do work at middle school. They do get paid. We plan on paying them next year. They're completely grant funded. So to go back to it, there's 0 local dollar cost to it. Again, the numbers in the book refer to the local dollars only. Another example is on page 18. Again, I believe it's about the middle. There's a special ed supervisor position we have. If you look at the current year versus what's in the proposed FY24 year, it looks like there's a significant increase. I can tell you there's not a significant increase with the cost of the position. That position currently this year is being offset partial salary by expiring grant. So because the grant is expiring, the full cost of the position it's indicated in the proposed FY24. So just to kind of give a sampling of how grants impact the local dollars versus really our operating costs. Just go down. So just to kind of move further into key factors, again, I mentioned salaries are 67% of our overall budget. Other factors I had previously spoken to special education. So when we finalized the FY23 budget, prior to school opening in September, we had 2 new private special ed placements, which come at significant costs. And during the course of this school year, we've had 2 families with of 2 students that were already attending private placements, which we absorb the costs and have to plan for next year. So from when we finalized the FY23 budget to where we are now and what we are anticipating going into FY24 is that it's an additional 4 students privately placed. Those 4 placements alone equal over 551,000. That's not taking in any other additional costs in special education. That's only those 4 placements, just to put in perspective. Medical insurance is another one I'll highlight. That's currently budgeted at 10% increase. I can tell you that's we're on the state plan, similar to the town side. I know they're also budgeted at 10%. And that's the latest projection that came out 2 weeks ago. I can tell you last year it was a 10.5% increase. So you really have a 10% off of already a 10.5% increase. Last year they gave an estimate 8% and came in at 10.5. So right now they're giving 10%. Certainly it doesn't mean they could be. We hope for lower, but it could actually be higher if you look at last year just as past practice. So that increase alone is almost 337,000. We also had a decrease in revenue. So I had spoken earlier about the special ed revenue that we receive for the students that come from Hartford that receive special education. We also receive a general ed tuition rate for every student that attends. I can tell you we've had a decrease in enrollment this year from previous years. I can tell you that was a strategic move on our part. Just being completely clear, the program, we haven't maximized the benefits of the program based on how we have opened up our open seats in the past. So in the past, what we would do is we would take low enrollment grades. So if we had a low enrollment grade in grade 7, grade 9, grade 11, that's where we would open our seats. And those students would come and attend those grades. The challenge with that is it's very difficult to integrate students later in their educational process. What we were finding was, unfortunately, those students weren't being as successful as we would like. So what we've done is refocus the program to focus on the early elementary grade levels, open the seats at that level where we can engage the families and integrate it in a way that benefits everyone, both our students, our residents, along with the students coming in. Sometimes in order to do things right, you have to take a step back before you go forward. And so as a result, we had a reduction in enrollment. Our goal would be to grow that enrollment for future years, but that's just where we are standing. So as a result, though, we lost over 117,000 in revenue that we're projecting for next year based on those numbers. You're always reimbursed on the previous year's numbers. So FY24 will be based on this year's enrollment. So our goal would be to increase our enrollment for next year, but we wouldn't see the benefit of that till the following year, the way the tuition reimbursement works. With that too, we've worked hard as far as our non-personnel areas, and I'll speak a little bit more to that to make reductions in all other areas. I can tell you within this budget, this is truly a level service budget. So this slide just kind of puts it in context. So if you just remove the 4 new students, I mean, that is a 2.14 increase on the overall budget on this current FY23 budget. The reduction choice enrollment revenue, and that's the general ed revenue, is 0.46 overall increase to the overall budget. The medical insurance at 10% equates to 1.31 for a total of 3.19. So when you take in all other categories, the remaining increase is less than 1%. So to put it putting our reductions in perspective, I can tell you between myself and the leadership team, we've worked extremely diligently to see how we can be more efficient with the current things in place. So that includes improved management of our supplies, reducing textbooks at all buildings. Again, this is a level service, so you'll see no new equipment budgeted despite our capital and facility improvement needs. We were able to reduce legal, for those that may be from, more familiar with our school district. We are fortunate enough that we have 5 collective bargaining agreements up this year. And that's been quite a process, and obviously legal is involved as far as getting new contracts on the books. Thankfully, we don't have 5 contracts up next year, thus we can reduce legal. And then this year we did make a change with technology. We outsourced technology. With that, there's been cost savings within each of our school buildings. You'll see previously we used to have printing and copy costs. We still have those costs, but they've been able to be absorbed through our technology supply lines by outsourcing. We've also used grants to purchase student laptops. So with our ARP ESSER grant, between myself and assistant superintendent, we've revised the ARP ESSER grant to include some of our technology needs. It's one of the few grants you actually can supplant. And so to be more fiscally minded, it's about 40,000 in laptops that we shifted into that grant. We also have some further reductions in grants. So here's just kind of overview. Again, on page 43, it gives a breakdown of all the grants that we have in place, but we have Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV grants. I can tell you those are reoccurring grants. We receive those grants year to year, so they're pretty much expected. The nice thing is, if you see as far as what we've received this year compared to what we're anticipating receiving next year, there's actually a slight increase. On the other end, we have expiring grants, which are our ESSER grants related more to the COVID pandemic. So there was the ESSER grant, there was ESSER 2 grant, and then the third grant was referred to as ARP ESSER. So ESSER 1 has expired. ESSER 2 will expire at the end of this year, which will leave us with ARP ESSER. I will say that we worked strategically on how we allocated resources and personnel into those grants to minimize the funding cliff. So for example, we might have put a staff member in the first ESSER, that same for year 1. We would have put that same staff member in ESSER 2 for year 2, and then in year 3, we would have put it in ESSER or ARP ESSER. Rather than putting all new things in all 3 of them, what we did was I'll take ARP ESSER. It's a total of 1.9 million over 3 years. We reserved the 864, almost 865,000 for the last year, so we could strategically push things from each grant to maximize the length of it and also minimize the funding cliff that you see some other surrounding school districts speaking about currently. Our special ed grants, what I can tell you is we had a boost these last couple of years because of COVID. When you look at the 273,000, I can tell you those are the funding that we would see pre-pandemic. So it's not so much we're getting a decrease, but we're just not receiving the additional ESSER funds specifically targeted for special ed. The open choice grant, I can tell you that's aligned with our Hartford Choice program. So because we had declined enrollment, it also affected that grant. And the Perkins had a slight increase. So when you take it all, it equals, I can't read my own slide on my screen, 310,000. So just over that. So if you look at the reductions from both the local and the grant, it equals the amount of 667 plus thousand, which is approximately a 2.6 decrease from this year's budget. And then just to put it in further perspective, if you remove the 4 new special ed private placements that were not planned for when we closed, when we finalized the FY23 budget, to where we are now, and you set medical insurance at a more reasonable 5%, this current budget proposal would be approximately a 2% increase from this year's budget. And then to even put in further perspective, when you look at the surrounding school districts, they're currently coming around 4 to 10% increases to the local budget. So the 4.88 is not unique to East Windsor. I mean, I can read the papers. I'm sure other people have been reading the papers, but I know South Windsor is at 7.95. I know Windsor Locks came in at 10. Ellington was 5.19. I believe Town was over 7. I believe Vernon was 4.5 with reducing 15 staff members. Windsor's at 4.8. So the numbers are not unique to East Windsor. All that being said, this budget still allows us to continue the good work we have. So those that are familiar with the school system, we put in 2 new phonemic awareness and literacy programs within our schools, and we're already seeing growth with those. Last year we put in a new math program, and we've seen success with that. At the middle school, it still maintains our talented and gifted program, still maintains our after school programs, our middle school sports. Since we've been coming out of the pandemic, we've seen our course numbers increase. Still puts that emphasis on classroom instruction. At the high school, it still maintains the expansion of our AP courses. Certainly, again, coming from the pandemic, we're looking at return of band and music. Certainly strengthening our classroom instruction. Still making sure that we're thinking about and being mindful of our post-secondary opportunities. And when you think of our most recent growth, we are an alliance district. Last year, we out of all the alliance districts, we had the second highest growth rate for reading, and we had the highest growth rate for math. And then if you look at our SAT scores in the last year, we went from below to above state average. So it still prioritizes and allows us to do and continue the good work that we have in progress. And certainly I have other slides I can just scroll through, but certainly, being connected to the community, the culture, that allows us to continue to do those things. And I appreciate everyone's time.
Thank you, Dr. Coogan. So we are in a joint public hearing. Before we turn to any comments that the public may have to, because it's a public hearing, maybe the board that should come up, maybe take some seats in the front so people know who they're talking to. You're good. So first, we'll turn to anybody in the room. If you'd like to offer comments on either my presentation or Dr. Tugin's presentation, then we'll turn to anybody who's online. In both cases, be kind of identify yourself by name and address. We'll make sure we know who we're visiting with. Is there anybody in the room who would like to offer any comments? Yes, sir. Name and address, please.
Paul Anderson, 89 Main Street, Rockbrook. First question is going to be for the selectmen on the budget.
Not really supposed to be doing questions. We're supposed to be giving comments because the boards have not had a chance to see them yet.
Well, there's a disparity in what's here, so that's why I wanted to bring it up. Okay, I'll do it a different way. My comment is under libraries for, never mind, I understand that one. The first selectman hasn't decided yet, never mind. That is,
No. My recommendations are there.
I don't.
25,000 for the public library as requested.
Excuse me, I'm looking at. Total libraries, I apologize, it was recreation that I was looking at. That has nothing there. Okay, fair enough. That answers that question and didn't even make a question out of it. Thank you. All right, now for the Board of Ed, I noticed that the cafeteria has an amount for 23, but no amount for 24. None. I don't understand. Can you explain what that means to us?
Yes, I appreciate you asking the question as well too. So, in previous years, our cafeteria has not been self-sufficient with the revenue generated. And we have made some vast improvements with our cafeteria, in which it is self-sufficient on the day-to-day operations. Now it may not be able to sustain like capital improvements, but as far as to run that operations day-to-day, it doesn't require support from the local budget.
Excellent, thank you very much. I'm all set.
Are there any other comments on either the first selectman's presentation or the superintendent's presentation? Anybody in the room? Yes, ma'am, name and address, please.
Patricia Sherry, Depot Street, 119, Rubber. I have a question for the Board of Ed. Is the curriculum, I can't even say it, for people to see?
I will defer that to our assistant superintendent back there.
Yeah, so the curriculum, if there was a specific curriculum that you were interested in finding, I can certainly get that for you.
I'm just interested in finding what the kids are learning.
So if I don't have the whole thing posted online.
No,
It's certainly, we're making shifts as we speak. That is actually in the process. We've expanded a lot of the curriculum that's available. We're gonna be posting it more online for people to see. But if there is a specific curriculum that anyone is interested in finding, you can certainly reach out to me and I will get you that.
I am probably looking for things that I don't want to see.
Yeah, and anytime, my phone, I get calls all the time from citizens who are wondering about specific curriculum, specific things of interest that they would like to talk about. I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to have you come in. We can sit and talk about it at any point.
Where are you?
I can get you my card and my
Okay.
number.
Just to even further speak to that, each month at our Board of Ed meetings, we do give a curriculum report, so it gives an update on the overall curriculum, how our students are performing. We also do a school report on a monthly basis as well, which focuses obviously on the curriculum at the instructional levels at the school
Okay,
too.
and the
So,
public is coaching.
absolutely,
Okay,
we would love to have you.
thank you.
Excuse me, Jason. This
Yes.
is- I apologize. I missed the assistant's name.
Daryl Millard.
Thank you.
I can't spell it though.
No, I have it. Thank you.
Sorry, Daryl. Are there any other comments from people in the room on either budget proposal? Any other yes, sir. Well, Bill Lewis, 31, Melrose Road. The school population going up or going down?
From last year, it's pretty status quo, so there really has,
Same.
correct. Yep.
What's the cost per student?
I can generate, I did not do a per pupil.
You don't know where
It's probably,
the state or
we're above state average.
about the average?
No, I said above state
I know
average.
that.
Yep.
That's what I thought. Good, sir. Very good. Are there any other comments from anybody here in the room? Name and address, please. Anyone else in the room? Anyone else in the room? Is there anybody online who would like to make comments on either my presentation or Dr. Tudrin's? If so, please unmute yourself, identify yourself by your name and address.
Hi, Jason, Noreen Farmer, 247 South Water Street. I missed the very beginning of the presentation. I'm wondering that transparency software that you used last year, will that be being used again this year?
Yes, and it's up to date. I believe it's up to date with both Patrick's presentation and mine.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Are there any other comments from anybody who's joined us online? Anyone else online? Anyone else online? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion from the Board of Selectmen to adjourn our portion of the public hearing.
I'll move we adjourn the public hearing.
Is there a second? Second. Motion has been made and seconded. It's not debatable. All in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 7:40. Sure.
I'd like to make a motion to dismiss the East Windsor Board of Ed portion of the public hearing.
Motion to adjourn the Board of Ed portion of the public hearing.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
So Peg, that was a motion by Ms. Menard, seconded by, I think, Ms. Severino, but I couldn't see. So that should be what you need. Both are unanimous. The public hearing is adjourned. I'll now reconvene the meeting of the Board of Selectmen and take up the regular course of the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Still my copies. So put them up by the schools.
There's some more here too. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Want the budget booklet and the presentation? Yeah, please.
I just need to feel that.
Sorry. But you can steal a second.
You guys want to spread out?
It's kind of love. Thank you.
I just wanted up that same day. I'm not over So. Maybe call up tomorrow? Yeah. I got something on. We talked about something in her. Oh, yes, yeah. I'll call you.
I like one day.
So three members of the Board of Selectmen are in attendance. The four of us are here present in the room, and Selectman Baker has joined us online. Approval of meeting minutes, January 5th, 2023, regular minutes with corrections. Is there a motion?
Make a motion that we accept the meeting minutes of the regular meeting, February 5th, 2023, as presented with the corrections.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion or additional corrections? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? So approved. The regular meeting minutes from Thursday, January 19th. Is there a motion?
Move that we approve the regular meeting minutes from January 19th, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried unanimously. Public participation. This is one of two opportunities for the public to address the members of the board. If you'd like to address the board, please state your name and your address, state your business. I'll first turn to people who are here in the room, and then I'll offer the same opportunity to anybody who's online. Is there anyone in the room who would like to address the Board of Selectmen? Yes, sir. Name and address, please.
Buckley, Kings Court. One quick question. You referred to senior citizens. You didn't mention the year. When does that begin? Is it typically 65 or?
Yeah, 65.
It's not 62 and it's not.
So the data source that you use constitutes a senior as anybody who's 65 and older. So if you're looking to compare apples to apples, that's what the data source is using. Any other questions or comments from anybody in the room? Sorry, Mr. Losek, you're the only one over there. Yes. Seal fireman again. Is there anyone who would like to address the members of the board? If so, please unmute yourself, state your name and address, and state your business. Okay. Then we will move on to communications. So this is an annual submission that we get. We actually get two of these. One from the Connecticut Trolley Museum, and I think the other one is. I don't remember who it was from. I want to say it's from DPW. What's that? Oh, it's from Eversource. You're right, it's from Eversource. So this is just the annual submission from the Connecticut Trolley Museum about their vegetation management plan. If anybody has any questions or comments on it, certainly can reach out to Gina at Trolley Museum. We don't have any resignations, reappointments, or new appointments. Okay, we're going to 8E, discussion of next steps pertaining to congressionally directed spending awards. So you all remember that at our last meeting, we talked about what the potential next steps would be. I said that I would come and present options at this meeting so that we could consider them. Amy and I have spent some time working on them. I have another PowerPoint. This is all I've done this week. Call. That's all. Take a lot of time. Yeah. It's okay. One second, please. So the 9-step thing here. Give you an error message here. All right, hold on. Yeah, man. That's not it. Try this one way. I practiced this, I really did. Evidently not very well. I have it.
Oh, at least we can look at Alan.
Okay. There we go. Sarah or Marie, can you move the talkie box thing up to view a bit? So here's the background on why this is a conversation at this point in time. With a mouth. Oh, with mouse. Scream. Yeah. So as you guys remember, the Scout Formation and expansion projects to be used as a community center was included in the federal budget. The funds, which are 55% of the total project cost, up to a $5 million project, were included as an earmark for the town of East Windsor and a congressional appropriation to USDA. Federal funding in this case is considered last in, which means that we need to secure the other 45% of the project cost before those funds become available. Just as a quick side note, USDA has already reached out and been in touch with us to discuss what the next steps are, and that conversation should be happening in the next week or two. These funds are not block granted. And what that means is that we cannot reassign them. They are for one specific project only. Our only options are to cancel the project funds and return them to the federal government, or to ask the voters to consider the proposed project under these changed circumstances. As an aside, there was a petition that was circulated with nearly 250 signatures. The petitioners are actually here in the room. At my request, the petitioners have not submitted it because it calls for bonding $3.8 million for the project, which in light of the federal funding award, we know what we need to do. However, they could, if they chose to, still decide to submit their petition, and we would be required by law to take it up. So, in anticipation of the federal funds for the new projects and the potential need for a new referendum, we wanted to make sure that our budget number for the project was still good. To accomplish that, we engaged the services of a professional estimator, and his findings are that the price of the project had in fact come down. The new project cost would be $4.6 million for the work that's yet to be done, plus the architectural and engineering work that's already been completed, as well as the estimated costs. And the project total now would be $4.72 million, which is reimbursable under the federal grant, inclusive of the architecture and engineering and the estimated work. 55% of those project costs for the revised estimate covered by the federal award totals just shy of $2.6 million. Yes,
Was there a cost for the estimator?
there's $3,500.
Thank you.
The board of finance transferred $1.2 million to CNR at the end of last year for this project, pending voter approval. And that leaves the outstanding balance necessary for the project at just $924,000. So with $924,000 necessary to fill the gap, Amy and I have come up with three options. The town still has unallocated ARPA funds. The town is set to receive $1.5 million in impact payments from Gravel Pit Solar. And the town remains eligible for community investment fund grant dollars. The town, so we're going to talk about the American Rescue Plan Act option first. There's actually two pieces of this. So the town still has approximately $2 million in ARPA dollars on hand and uncommitted. Those funds can be used for any purpose traditionally provided for by a local government. There are a few caveats to that. We are prohibited in the federal law from using those funds for tax relief, to pay down pension obligations, to pay down existing debt, or to replenish the fund balance. Those things are off the table. They are not allowable under the federal law for that authorization. Capital projects are specifically allowed. If we were to use the $124,000 of funds for the project, that would leave us with $1 million remaining from those funds that could be used for other municipal purposes. We're staying on ARPA for a second. Once again, is $2 million. The federal share of the project is $2.6 million. If we were to use all of the remaining ARPA dollars on a community center, the project costs would be nearly covered. This would require only $80,000 in additional dollars. This would allow the Board of Finance to reallocate most of the $1.2 million that's in CNR for some other use. It also would make the project almost 100% funded by the federal government. Moving on to Gravel Pit Solar. So this is a project that's commencing construction very shortly. They're having active conversations with departmental staff. We expect permits to be pulled imminently. As part of the agreement with Gravel Pit Solar, they're going to be paying us a payment in lieu of taxes, but they're also committed to paying us $1.5 million specifically for capital projects. Using the federal appropriation, the fund currently included in CNR, and the impact payment from Gravel Pit Solar and the project costs are covered. And then this is the wild card that's kind of in the mix. So the town of East Windsor is one of 54 towns that qualifies for CIF funding. The Community Investment Fund is a federally funded grant program that uses state-owned dollars for community improvement projects. When we reviewed the application criteria for the center, actually for the CIF, the community center project fits specifically into that. Our initial application in the first round was rejected for only one reason. They wanted to see if the federal government would cover the project costs. Many towns had projects that were rejected for a litany of reasons per application. I think some of them had as many as 15 different reasons why they were rejected. Ours had just one. So we now have an answer to the question of whether or not the feds would cover the whole project. The next round of CIF applications is going to be awarded on or about March 6th. If the CIF board does fund the project, we'll have the balance covered between state dollars and federal dollars, with no local dollars necessary at all. So a couple of other things. I want to stress that the federal award specifies that the funds are for the renovation and expansion of Scout Hall. The purpose is to create a multi-purpose, multi-generational service center. It cannot be allocated for some other purpose. The Connecticut Water, well, that's not true. It can't be allocated for some other purpose without another act of Congress. So let's put an asterisk there and say another act of Congress. The Connecticut Water Company in November of this past year estimated the cost to run water to Parkville and to School, I should say Schoolville, not school, is approximately $3.7 million. Those two areas apply the Koga property on two sides. $3.7 million to run water. That's before you run sewer, before you run gas, before you run electrical service or do the grading work, and before you buy a stick of wood. The Coconut property is also encumbered under a long-term agricultural lease that I think has 7 years remaining. So, those are our options. Amy, did I miss anything? Amy, what add?
No.
She talks a lot more in my office. So, that sort of thing said,
Could I ask you to go back to option 1 and option 2 again and just explain? I know they were both with ARPA funds, but what the differences were again?
yeah.
Thank you.
I can do that.
Please do.
One is using all ARPA funds, the whole 2 million that we have left.
Okay.
That's option 2. The other one is continuing to use the 1.2 that's in the CNR for it and only using a portion of the ARPA funds, the 924.
Okay.
So then it would leave us about $1 million of other ARPA money for the other projects that people said they wanted in that community survey we did.
Thank you.
No, in reality, the only thing you really couldn't use the CNR dollars for would be something like social programming. They're substantially similar, it's just whether or not you want a local buy-in or all federal.
Question on the Culver property, is that lease agreement binding for the entire duration of it, or is there a caveat in that lease that says we have a right?
I think it's a 1 year notice period.
It's 1
You
year.
need to provide 1 year notice from a specific date. I want to say the date is November 1st. But I haven't looked at that in like a year. Al, you still with us? I can't see you anymore.
Yes, sir.
Any questions or comments?
No, I think it's a good problem to have, right? We have a few different ways to make this happen, I think. And obviously, I think we got to wait till March to make our final decision, but I like all these opportunities.
What do you guys think?
So I would just add that, I mean, to me, it's win-win. Why we wouldn't do this project is crazy to me. And I would emphasize that this has nothing to do with the Scandic event facility.
No, it has nothing to do with that.
I think it's great that we have some different avenues to explore to make it happen, but I definitely agree with Alan that we should wait until March to see what the result is of the SIP grant and everything.
If it was up to me, I'd do the project tomorrow, but it's not. I think it's going to be up to the residents of East Windsor to do that. And because of some criticism that we moved a little too fast in some areas without having complete information, I think we should wait till March 6th to see if we're going to get that extra money. So I agree with Ellen on that.
Could you email that to us too? Thank you.
Okay.
What should be taken out of all of this, in my opinion, is that people here ought to be looked at as doing their jobs, because there's been years in town, a lot of years in town, where you didn't have any options to do anything. And to have an option to build an addition to an existing building at little to no money, because of what option we take.
Little to no.
We take, is a good thing, in my opinion, so. And I just want to thank the three gentlemen, that started the petition. That did, I'm assuming you didn't complete getting the rest of the signatures because you were asked.
No, they have.
No, we haven't.
Okay, okay,
Well, they have 247.
We haven't.
so you have all the signatures needed if you were to push that forward. But thank you for giving us an opportunity to revisit it, in a different light, so. Well, I got.
So I guess I'd just like to add, can we put this presentation on the town website as well? So It's available, so, if the real information is out there, we probably have less of the misinformation that is sure to come.
But that's not true, but I'm happy to put it on the website.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so. Now we get to talk about insurance. Yeah, okay. So this is actually going to end up being a budget savings. A nominal one, but it's going to be budget savings nonetheless. We are in year 3 of our existing thermal lab policy, and they've come forward with an option to extend it another 3 years. What that would mean is that this coming budget year, we have a 0 increase in our lab, with locked in 3% increases next year and the year after. Next year being fiscal 25 and then fiscal 26. Those are also maximums. We're currently locked into a 3-year 5% rate hike, and it was less than that.
They were recommending 2.6 for 24.
So if we can get a year of 0 and then a not to exceed of 3 for the next 2 years thereafter, that seems to be a pretty smart deal. So in order to do it, it's a contract, it's an engagement letter, locking us in, so I would need authorization from the board. And it's also, and we probably should have mentioned it to Patrick while he was here, but this would affect them too. So this is cost savings for the town. It'll help a little bit, provide some relief on the budget presentations. Questions, comments, observations? Can I have a motion and authorization aside?
Make a motion.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Make a motion to authorize the first selectman to sign the letter of commitment for budget stabilization program between the Connecticut Interlocal Risk Management Agency, KERMA, and the town of East Windsor and East Windsor Board of Education, effective 7/1/23/24, 7/1/25/26.
Yeah, you got to authorize my signature too.
Isn't that what I began with? Authorize the first selectman to sign.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So carried. Okay. Next, I lost my agenda. Okay, ARPA Rural Road Grant. So this is another ARPA funded grant program that's available specifically for rural roads. I forwarded this over to Acting Chief Hart. And he submitted an application on behalf of the town. We did get it. This would cover, this would equate to another $50,000 in ARPA grant funding coming specifically to the town for rural traffic enforcement, rural speed enforcement. And it is again another contract, so I need authorization to sign acceptance. $5,000 a month for 10 months. And what we'll do, it'll increase our patrols for 4 weeks a month.
So do they have, I'm sorry, I didn't read through this whole entire thing, did they have a specific plan?
No. Okay. It's specifically for traffic patrols, for patrol of traffic and speed enforcement. It's not region specific or street specific or shift specific. It's simply additional funding to bring another officer on the roads. That's Roger's narrative. If you want, for the benefit of the audience, I'll read that out loud. The citizens of East Windsor's the citizens of the town of East Windsor's primary complaints to the police department is about speeding vehicles and traffic violations during the commuter traffic hours. The town's proximity to I-91 forces streets to become primary thoroughfares for people commuting east and west through East Windsor. These streets or roads are neighborhood streets that now have to accommodate the increase in vehicular traffic due to commuters. The East Windsor Police Department is a relatively small department And the shift minimum is 1 supervisor and 2 patrol officers. This grant will enable us to hire an additional officer to focus on traffic-related issues during commuting hours several times a week. Our focused efforts will enhance our enforcement capabilities, address the public's concerns or complaints, and have a positive impact on traffic violations, and reduce accidents, including fatalities, while avoiding a reduction in essential services. Recent staffing issues have put a strain on our agency's ability to proactively police the community, including our ability to actively enforce traffic violations. The department's goals and objectives for this project is to reduce speed and all other traffic violations on our rural roads and streets that are frequently used as commuter routes. The increase of traffic enforcement will enhance community safety and improve the quality of life for our. And this has been awarded. All we need to do now is move to accept it and authorize signature.
I'll make a motion that we accept the state of Connecticut grant agreement on the SLF. Our F in the amount of $50,000 utilized $5,000 a month over fiscal year 2023 and authorize the first selectman to plan accordingly.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next up is another grant application that we see annually. This is our emergency management grants. We are going to receive $6,417 in federal funds in exchange for our commitment to spend $6,417 of local funds for emergency management. That is only a portion of what we spend on emergency management activities. But this is money that comes from the federal government through the Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection. It's an annual thing. We've seen this now a number of times. Questions or comments? Another one of those things I need permission to sign.
I'll move that we accept and authorize the first selectman to sign the grant contract with the state of Connecticut and the Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection.
Is there a second?
Second.
Made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 I don't know why this one is. Opposed? No? Okay. Tax refunds.
I'll move to approve the tax refunds totaling $5,452.77.
Is there a second?
Second.
Made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Slide grants. Thank you. So tonight, as you all saw, I presented my preliminary recommendations for this year's town budget, and Dr. Tudrin presented his preliminary recommendations for this year's Board of Ed budget. I want to thank Finance Director Amy O'Toole and all of the town department heads who helped with the formulation of this initial proposal. This is only the first step in a lengthy budget process. After tonight, the Board of Selectmen and Education will now get to work to meet and consider the recommendations from Dr. Tudrin and me. We'll hear from the relevant department heads and boards and commissions, and both boards will continue to solicit public feedback. After the Board of Education and Selectmen make the changes to our proposals, our finance follows a similar process, and the public is invited and encouraged to attend and offer feedback every step of the way. As we head into incoming tax filing season, the town is pleased to partner once again with AARP to provide assistance to residents in our community. AARP tax preparation services are being offered at the East Windsor Senior Center from now until April 10th. Participants need to be East Windsor residents aged 60 and over. There is no charge for tax preparation assistance, and you can call the Senior Center to make an appointment. We're now accepting applications for summer jobs in Parks and Recreation. We have openings in the snack bar, the gatehouse for lifeguards and camp counselors. Applications can be found on the town's website. Just a reminder, the town did recently pass a new elderly property tax credit. The assessor's office is accepting applications from February 1st through May 15th. We've already had a number of takers, which I'm very excited about. Qualifying households will receive a $250 tax credit on their July tax bill. The state elderly homeowners program will follow the same enrollment schedule of February 1st through May 15th. The assessor's office has more information on that. On Saturday, the 28th, I attended two notable events. The first was at the Summers Veterans Coffee House, where my friend Captain Tim Keeney, also Summers first selectman, gave a presentation on some of his experiences as a Navy SEAL. In addition to being a Navy SEAL and a Vietnam veteran, Captain Keeney was on the dive rescue team for Apollo 17, and he led the dive rescue for Skylab 2. I've reached out to Tim and asked if he'd be willing to give his presentation at the East Windsor Senior Center, and we're working on dates for that, probably sometime in early April. At the same event, Nick DeRay was in attendance just 2 days before his 102nd birthday. Nick is a veteran of Iwo Jima during World War II, and I was really excited for the opportunity to get a photo with both Nick and with Tim and my son Elliot, who at 4 probably doesn't appreciate it, but at 40 certainly will. That same day, I was delighted to speak at the Eagle Court of Honor for LaShawn Robinson, a local East Windsor Eagle Scout. LaShawn works at East Windsor Park in the summer, and he's going to be attending college in Germany. I wish him our sincere congratulations. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to offer the keynote address at East Windsor Middle School's first annual Career Day. Charlie's daughters actually came to my breakout session, which was, I'm not gonna lie, a little intimidating. It's like watching. After the keynote, I was one of more than 30 breakout session speakers with whom students had an opportunity to visit. All of the kids were great. They were interested and attentive, and they asked great questions. Kudos to the staff at East Windsor Middle School for putting on a great event, and I look forward to participating again next year. Last night, I was happy to join the Board of Education for an update on the property tax system, how it works, how the grand list is integrated into that, and what the Boards of Education, Finance, and Selectmen should be thinking about as we begin the budget process. Heating costs are still affecting many lower income households in our area, especially with fuel prices this winter. To help raise money for local heating assistance programs, the town is sponsoring our Panther Plunge for the first time in several years. The plunge will be in East Windsor Park on Saturday, February 18th at 1 p.m. Prizes will be given out for largest donation by team, by individual, and for best costumes. All proceeds will benefit the East Windsor Fuel Bank, and anyone interested can sign up by calling Parks and Recreation. All right.
Okay. I attended East Windsor Water Pollution Control Authority meeting on January 25th. The public hearing for West Farms LLC was held without any public or Zoom participations. West River Farms 26, 28, 35, 45, and 46 passed unanimously for facility connection charges. Mr. Enderle provided the commission with the fiscal year 23-24 budget and financials in order to discuss amongst the members. The highlights for me are the professionalism, concerns for the taxpayers, and the ability to run the Water Pollution Control Authority without any debt owed. The budget was approved unanimously, holding the rate steady and operating under healthy fund balance. And I would encourage anyone to take a look at their presentation that they presented. If the board would like to borrow this book with the presentations of their budget, and what they gave at the staff meeting. And then also feel free to grab and take a look at it. And if you haven't been down there, I would encourage anyone to go down there on the board to take a look at what's happening down there, because it's very impressive. It was impressive 10 years ago when I took the tour down there, and it's even more impressive now. They've upgraded the computer systems where they can actually sit in a room and they can determine what they're shutting off in town and what they're not shutting off in town, and just by buttons they can slow down the flow, whatever they want. So they're doing a lot of good things down there and upgrading. And again, not having to go out and bond for anything. And if you look at other towns, they're bonding all the time for stuff. So kudos to those that are behind those others there. That's all that.
All right. Alan.
Okay, so I'll start off with the Diversity Council. They are looking to kind of raise their visibility in town. So they're talking about, different opportunities for getting into, kind of getting involved with other events that might be happening in town. And for example, they were interested in joining the National Night Out, which I think would be a great fit. So they're working towards that kind of stuff. The other thing that they're working on, which I really kind of think is in the final phases, really at this point in time, they're just looking to nail down the funding, which is about, I think, $5,000, is the Witness Stones project, which I have discussed before. That's, research on, what families may have been here back in, in the beginning of in the founding of our town, and this would be done in, in the curriculum, probably at the middle school level, as far as our plan is concerned. So they were going to bring that to the Board of Education and try to, kind of bring that home. They've been working on it for about a year, and I'm looking forward to see that get done. Planning and zoning, there was really only, I guess, one item to note with that is they did finally vote on the Scannick Event Barn, and they, as you probably all heard, denied that unanimously. So that application was denied and will not move forward. The Agricultural Commission and the Conservation Commission. So they're kind of both working on the same stuff at this point in time almost. And so the two main items there is the community garden, which they're, doing all the stuff, getting ready to go, for this year, getting it cleaned up and everything. But they did want to mention, and for me to pass on to the Board of Selectmen, that they need to start thinking about a succession plan. There's a lot of things that are done there, and I would never say this about this commission, but they said it, that they're not getting any younger. And the amount of work that they are doing is extensive for them. And so they've built a really nice product there, I guess, that is really well used by the community, and they would hate to see it fall apart after all the effort that's been put into it. So they want to look into options for getting some help to get it, started in the spring and put to bed in the fall, so to speak. So that was one thing. And the second thing that both the Conservation Commission and the Ag Commission are looking at is the Kogut property. They, as you may have remembered me reporting on a number of times, are working on reclaiming the part of the land at the Kogut property that is not under an agricultural contract at this point in time. And it was most recently shade tobacco. And when that shade tobacco farmer stopped, they just left everything there. So all the wires are there and all the posts are there, and then all the trees growing around it. And it's taken that prime agricultural land and made it pretty much useless. So they've been working on a farmland restoration grant or different methods to kind of figure out what to do about that. So they're continuing that effort, as well as the effort to do something to remediate the tobacco barn that is on that property. It's one of those things, if something doesn't get done with it, it's going to become a hazard and we'll lose the barn. And as you know, we could be getting some revenue with that. So they are also looking at options for that. I had two other meetings that I was not able to attend. They were both last night. I was traveling. That was the Wetlands Commission and the Pension Board. So I won't report on those this time, but I'll give you an update on the pension with my next report. And that's all I have for you.
Thank you. It was Sarah.
Last night I attended the Board of Education special meeting, which was a makeup because of last week's cancellation. Jason already spoke about his presentation on the property reval that he gave to the board. Ryan Galloway gave a brief financial report stating that he continues to find lines that weren't properly recorded as he continues to clean up munis. Some of these lines were grant offsets that were not properly recorded, or positions that the funding is split between schools that needed correcting. He hopes to have everything where it needs to be within a 2-month time period. Superintendent Dr. Patrick Tudrin provided a booklet on his draft proposed fiscal year 24 spending plan and gave a brief overview on his budget in anticipation of tonight's public hearing, which you all heard. I would like to commend Dr. Tudrin on this booklet, which will be available for residents to review. In the past 6+ years that I've been attending Board of Education meetings, I have not seen such a document. It was well thought out, and it's a great tool for residents to review throughout the budget process. It's really impressive. It's filled with pictures and explanations and not just numbers and graphs. It really takes a deep dive into what's happening in the school system. And I think it'll really answer a lot of questions throughout the process. And that's all that I have.
Thank you. Charlie.
Okay, I just had BMX committee meeting earlier this week. At that, Alex Ruggiero presented his Eagle Scout project to them, in which he wants to enhance their sign, the entrance there. And also, he proposed building them a picnic table to have stationed there for years to come. They discussed and planned their upcoming fundraisers for this spring, and with their recent $5,000 grant that they received from the Harvard Foundation for Public Giving. They're getting really close to their next step for purchasing more equipment for that park. So they're on board for that. And that's all I have.
Thank you. This is the public second opportunity for public participation. The same setup as before. I'll first turn to anybody in the room. If you'd like to speak, please state your name and your address and state your business. Once everybody in the room has had a chance, I'll turn to folks who are still online and give them the same opportunity. Yes, sir. Name and address, please.
Jim Barton, 158 South Water Street. Just have a question about the tax refunds. Did that include a refund to the Warehouse Point Fire District?
No, it would not have. If that would happen, I'll talk to you about that offline and I'll tell you how that process works. Thank you. Yes, sir. Name and address, please.
Randy Clifton, 7 Hickory Trail. I know the three of us were thrilled to find out that you guys have found ways to fund the rest of that community center. It warms my little heart. We worked quite a bit on that, and I know you have worked very hard on it as well. And we appreciate what you've done, and your presentation was very good on how that money can come from 3 different ways and not cost the town. I think that needs to be emphasized, that it's not going to cost the town.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Name and address, please.
Don Plattsburgh Mockingbird, just expanding what Randy just said. And you all know it's a neutral budget. There's no line item. It's not gonna cost us any money. So the money is there. And I don't know why you want to push off to March 6th. We've kicked this can down the road for 22 years. Let's get it done. Don't wait till March 6th. Vote on it. It's in your court. You're our body. You're our body. No, stop kicking the can down the road. Get it done. Get a referendum so we can get a vote on it and move forward. The townspeople want 99%. If everybody went, knocked on doors. Yes, yes, yes. Went to Coleman Farms. They're ready for signatures. We didn't have to knock on the door. They knew we were there. So, having said that, townspeople need it, they want it. Let's get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? I saw you and then you, sir. Mr. Lewis.
Bill Lewis, 44 North Road. Your $4,720,000. Does that include running a water line from Route 5 up to the Scott Hall?
Yes.
That's included in there.
Yes.
That's about $1 million, like you're right.
No, it's about 100,000.
Only 100,000? Well, why isn't so much up here to run the market railroad tracks? Railroad tracks, you go under here.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Gas line.
Paul Anderson, 89 Main Street, president of the Broadbrook Library. So the Broadbrook Library has had a few things completed recently. One was an Eagle project that put in a ramp, so we have much more comfortable access, and a Hartford Foundation grant to replace our floor, which is complete. And I would invite everyone to come and visit and see how wonderful this is. We now have more space just because the floor was taken care of. So I think it's a worthwhile project for people to come by and visit our library. It is much more comfortable than it ever has been. Thank you.
Congratulations. Yes, ma'am.
Tricia Sherry, 119 Depot Street. I hear from people at Park Hill that they're worried about getting to the Scout Hall, because a lot of them don't have cars. So if maybe somebody could talk to them and let them know that there will be transportation, that is correct?
There is transportation now and there will continue to be.
Okay. Old people.
Hey, I didn't know about that. Other questions? Yes, sir. Name and address, please.
When Sherry Dupert Street. I'm taxed in July for a vehicle, hypothetically, $1,000, and that's for the entire year. That goes 2023 to 24, right? Okay, if I get a vehicle and register in the middle of that, I'm prorated the tax, correct?
Yes, and you get a motor vehicle supplemental list,
Okay.
bill.
What about when I unregister a vehicle and get rid of it? What happens to my tax?
If you notify us about it, it goes away. If you don't notify us about it, you're gonna keep getting a bill.
But I'm taxed for the whole year. What about the tax?
That's how you end up on our tax refund list.
Okay, then I'm waiting. No, I didn't see my invoice. I didn't. I never got any money back ever.
You should visit the tax assessor's office and they can help with that.
I will. Thank you.
Any other comments from anybody in the room?
That's something.
Sure.
Your phone call, and you alluded to it in your, your report tonight, $250, per resident, providing they meet the criteria. Is that criteria the same as the current policy? With the other money that's available, if you were to go in and see, the assessor and fill out stuff, does that go from October to October? Or is that $250 for anybody if you're a certain age?
It's not $250 for anybody. You need to be income qualified, and I can't remember if in the ordinance it says that you need to make less than 49,900 or 50,100. I'm not sure which is in there, but the dollar amount is specified.
So if you make under that amount, you qualify. What do you have to provide to do that? Is it last year's income tax return?
Yeah, you need to do an income verification.
Yeah, based upon 2022 filing.
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just trying to clarify
It
that.
needs to be your primary residence.
Yep.
You need to be a resident there for at least half the year.
Yep.
You need to be age appropriate. You need to be income qualified.
Yeah. And you gotta provide your statement, income tax.
Yep. One time, you don't have to.
And that's a one-time, 1 year.
I honestly don't remember if it's a biannual renewal in the ordinance or if it's one and done. I know it's not every year. I think it's either.
I mean, the 250, that's just for this year?
No, it's $250 off your July tax bill prospectively. It's a straight credit system. We tried a bunch of other systems before. This is the cleanest and straightest way to do it.
All right.
Okay, is there anybody online who would like to address the board? If so, please unmute yourself, state your name and address, and state your business. All right.
Excuse me, I wasn't done.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, what's going on with the ordinances? We were supposed to do it together today and go over town wide or something, and that guy won't be able. What'd you do?
You're talking about the white one in particular?
No, the property maintenance in particular.
Yeah, that's the same one.
Yeah.
So their staff have come up with what's called what I consider to be a skinnier version of that, something that's going to be less intrusive and a bit more moderate in its approach. And I didn't put it on the agenda tonight, honestly, because I thought this would take longer than it has. I expected tonight to be a longer meeting than it turned out to be, so I pulled it to put it on at a later meeting in anticipation that we would be inundated tonight, and things have moved quicker than I expected.
Where'd you go?
Where'd you like to go?
You said you sent it out. Where is it? Did you say you sent it out to be?
I staffed it out. So staff, I'm sorry, maybe I wasn't clearly, I staffed it out. There's a more moderate version of it that the board will consider and then decide what if anything to move forward with. But you should know that we've heard some of the comments that have been raised throughout these discussions. And I think we're finding something that's a bit better. They haven't seen it yet. So I don't want to speak too much out of school about what it is, but know that I'm working towards finding something where we can accomplish public safety considerations without becoming The pretty police.
We're working on it.
Any other comments? Okay, we will have an executive session. It'll just be the 5 of us. Can I have a motion to go into executive session?
I'll move that we go into executive session.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're in executive session at 8:30 PM. Okay, we'll be, what is the big deal? 9:03, we're out of executive session. Selectman Musker.
I'd like to add an agenda item 9E under new business.
That's good.
Approval of a contract between the town of East Windsor and Pullman and Conley.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor of adding the agenda item, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I believe that's our next item of business.
Yes, I move to approve the engagement letter with Pullman and Conley to represent Jason Bauza in his official and individual capacity and to authorize the signature of the deputy first selectman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made by Sarah, seconded by Alan and Charlie. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. With no further business to come before the board of selectmen, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll move we adjourn at 9:04 PM.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. It's not debatable. All in favor, please say aye.
I
Aye.
do that on purpose now.
We are adjourned at 9:05.